there she is. Hey, Rebecca.
Hey,
Hello,
how's it going?
hello.
Sorry to be late. It's a
Oh, so
West Coast
late.
morning over here.
West
Hey, West Coast
Coast.
is the best coast. What can I say? It's awesome. I'm straight out of Long Beach, so
Oh,
that's my
cool.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So you know it.
I'm not there anymore, but that's where my like bread and butter is.
But also worthy enough of having on a t-shirt straight out of Long Beach.
It totally
There it
is the
is.
LBC. I mean, what can you say about it, other than it's just an amazing place to be? It's not LA,
Yeah.
it's not Orange County, it's its own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, I just saw you performing Led Zeppelin. Brad was sharing that with me. Oh my gosh, your stage presence is awesome. Like you get
Thank
so
you. That
into
was
it.
a very scary song. Like it's that I don't do many covers in my own musical repertoire, but like that was a scary one because it's like people who know that know every note. Like you don't want to hit that wrong in any way.
Well,
So
and how do you fill Robert Plant's shoes? Like that's like
you don't. That you
you
just don't even
don't.
try. You just take it your own direction. I mean, I think, yeah. If you're trying to Mockingbird the original singer, you're doing it wrong.
you know, I think I was once in the same room as Robert Plant.
Whoa,
I'm
seriously?
pretty sure. Yeah, yeah. At the Whiskey a Go Go, years
Whoa.
ago, I was watching a friend's band play, and I mean, some celebrities hang out in those crowds and check things
Yeah.
out. I saw, back then this was when the Osbournes was big. I saw Jack Osbourne in there with his little faux hawk and stuff and everything. And then another buddy of mine pointed, he goes, dude, the like lion's hair, that's Robert Plant. And I go,
Whoa.
oh, I'm like, you've got to be joking me. And so I didn't go up and confirm or anything, but I just like
Hmm.
to think that maybe that was
Yeah,
true,
that's
that I
enough.
shared a space with
Yeah.
him.
Well,
Oh, yeah. Let's
uh,
chat.
yeah, let's kind of pull back a little bit and we could kind of frame things and then we could sort of dive into the weeds. So welcome everybody to Open Up. This is a write-in advice show that we have been working on for a while. We're a few episodes in. I feel like we've been settling into a format a little bit, except the last time, Jeff, we just kind of let her
We
rip and
called
just
it
kind
we called
of
it
kind of
audible.
went in. We went off script, I think, a little bit, but we had a really good discussion that I think is related to what a lot of people have been writing in
I had a
about.
blast with that.
Yeah, it's good. And I think that the spirit of the show is really navigating the human side, the human experience of working as a professional designer and developer and or working in this field at all, and really kind of picking at all the things that aren't about, Figma and
Tool,
CSS and all of
tools.
that stuff, but really about a lot of the sort of experiential parts, the feelings and the anxieties and the conflicts and all of that good stuff. And we're encouraging people to write in and share what they're wrestling with, what are they working on, what are they struggling with, and hopefully give some words of wisdom and advice and resources and next steps and things to consider. And so yeah, so that's what we've been doing, and we're really excited because uh, for our very first time, even though all the way at the beginning we were talking about the idea of having someone else join us and sort of include other people sort of rolling in and stopping by the show to help weigh in on things, and we finally are doing it, and we have like the best person to kind of kick this off with, and that is Miss Rebecca Garza Bortman. uh Rebecca, how the heck are you?
I am so good. Today is my son's sixth birthday, which he's
Yeah.
my eldest
Cool.
son. So I like to remind all parents when your eldest child has a birthday, it is also, or your only child has a birthday, it is also your anniversary of being a parent. So I'm trying to take a
Yep.
moment for myself to be like 6 years into parenting. What have I learned? What have I wished I'd done better that I can do better in the next 106 years. So, yeah, that is
And
that is lighting up my morning.
well,
Amazing.
hopefully you give yourself a lot of grace in that too, of like I've done a lot of good stuff too in this
Oh
six
man,
years.
yeah. No, I mean, I think something actually that ties back to design is one of our parenting philosophies is keep his spark lit.
Oh, that's
making
cool.
sure that you don't put out your spark, which I don't know where the questions will take us today, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get to talk about that.
I think that's a bullseye right there. But what have you like with that in mind? Like, how do you what does that look like in
Yeah.
the your day-to-day existence for your kid? Because we wrestle with this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost it's it's so easy as a parent to like crush spirits, right? Just like how many of us were raised of just like discipline, like just making sure the child is seen and not heard is so like so a bygone, right?
Yeah,
But as I had I have wonderful parents, but still like, it's we're trying to do it very differently and trying to really respect who we got, the soul that we got, and making sure that he can shine and that is not like repressed down, despite the fact that his curiosity manifests itself as like literally a wildling. Like we got two wildlings. And we want to make sure that like even though we teach them about polite society, we're not crushing them in the process.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
guess day to day would be like, in the little interactions of like what are they doing that like you kind of acknowledge like you're curious. I understand you spilled that all over the floor because you wanted to see what it looks like all over the floor. But
yeah,
also like like we have
yeah,
to have a house that doesn't have flour all over the floor. Things
yes,
like that.
yeah,
Cheerios all over the back seat. Yeah, it's all
Hmm.
always
yeah.
there.
But I think that really gets at the heart of I think what a lot of us experience as adults and stuff is that we have to navigate polite society,
Yeah.
even though a lot of us are like, man, how many people would like, I've been on so many meetings where I just want to be like, everybody, this is just such bullshit. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, is this really what anybody here wants to be doing? But it's like you just find yourself in these situations. So it's like I really love the idea of like leaning into people's natural tendencies and dispositions and stuff, and that the more you're able to sort of put your what you're pointing your life energy towards, if that aligns with your natural disposition, then good things are going to happen. But like
Yes.
a lot of times where we've talked about this in the past on the show and elsewhere is like there are these boxes and these boxes have certain assumed boundaries or assumed like here's what you do in this box or here's what a job looks like and I need to behave a certain way or I need
Mhm.
to do a certain thing or not do these other things.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, if you're raising a wildling, being like, oh, this is what good boys do, and put on your three-piece suit and go sit in the desk and sit on your hands, like that's not gonna go well for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just gonna equal rebellion in all the ways.
Yeah. Well, and that really is it. It's like you go kind of like one of two ways with it. You know, Catholic school kid here is like you either like fall way in line with it and it's you get kind of fear or you get the other end of the spectrum, which is as soon as you're able to rebel, you will rebel big time. And I've witnessed that with a number of people in my life. And
Not you. No, never.
Oh,
not
never.
not me. I was actually like pretty good, all things considered, which is interesting. So I don't
Well, I don't
really.
want to be that person, but I'm gonna. I guess people usually say that before they're that person, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna quote one of my own song lyrics. Is
Sweet.
that too cliche?
Please
No.
go.
Give your eccentricities room to breathe, and you'll find your later life reprieve. And I just
Ooh.
really feel like um that if you like find your ways to just be yourself
Yeah.
and let out a little steam, then you will like it's not going to come back to haunt you because you'll have lived a life that's true to who you are, and just also like kudos if your parents can also help you with that and people who
Yeah.
love you can also help you with that, but just finding the places where you need to be a little bit more eccentric than the average.
Yeah.
I think everybody
That's
has
actually
those.
an interesting thing to talk about is like I always grew up thinking I don't care what other people think of me. I thought I was always tapping into that space as a person. But as I got older and I realized even in my little daily habits of things, that's not true. Like even when I'm picking out the clothes that I'm going to wear the next day, which okay, I didn't choose this out, obviously. But if I did, like I might be thinking, well, what am I doing tomorrow? What's the context? What am I going to, and I'm like, that's not living for me. Like I should just wear what I want to wear, right? Like just
Mhm.
embrace whatever it is I want to wear. But little habits like that seem to separate me from wanting to do what I want to do. And then that just fuels bigger behaviors that make you susceptible to other people's perceptions.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is you
Do
need
you
to let
ever?
loose. You need
Yeah,
to let loose.
exactly.
What are you
Exactly.
gonna wear tomorrow? Dress for the
Uh,
day that you want to have.
dress for the day you want to have, be the change you want to be in the world, right?
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to consider
Oh
where you're
no.
going to be and what you're going to be doing. I think like that the slippery slope, or the thing that enough people I feel like get into the habit of, is allowing that external world to chip away at their own internal being and say, oh well, I would be, I would have bright pink hair like Rebecca, but
Do it.
my job would frown on
Mm.
that. And it's like that's I think like the kind of stuff that I've kind of I receive that a lot from people, because I feel like I've done a lot of work to get to a place where I'm just kind of being myself wherever I go. And I
Mhm.
think I do. I hear that a lot from people, that they're like, yeah, I would like love to be doing something more like what I'm seeing you do, but I can't. And I was like,
Well, that's
well,
because
why? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Brad shaped life, right? They need to
Yes.
find what a them shaped life
Yeah.
is, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And but
Yes.
I think that they understand that. I think that they're just like looking though for like the permission, or thinking that they need the permission to
Hmm.
do that stuff. And I think that
Yeah.
there's some interesting stuff that I think maybe we could get into, sort of like some of the submissions, because I think that
Yeah,
before
let's
we
hear it.
started, because I think that this really gets at it. I think that there's like a lot of people that are, I think sort of one of like the themes, Jeff, that we were kind of talking about, was this idea of kind of like transition or pivoting. And a lot of uh that notion, I think, is really born from, nice. Thank you, Mac. Uh I think a lot of that notion is born from that, like, yeah, feeling of frustration, or feeling stuck, or not, a misalignment with kind of where people feel like they ought to be. And so I think that there's like a lot of really interesting concepts we could pick at here, which is like, how might you cultivate more of what we're talking about, and showing up more as your authentic self, even just in the context of your existing thing. But like, what happens when you kind of hit that wall, where it's like, oh yeah, where I'm at now is kind of incompatible with where my head's at, and where my heart's at, and where I want to be. And then it's like, how does navigating that look like? How does navigating this pretty scary present moment, where it doesn't exactly feel super duper safe to be doing a whole lot of like exploration, and like, yeah, I'm just gonna like switch paths and take up this whole new thing, or maybe I'm gonna like leave this field altogether, or maybe I'm gonna become you know a developer after being a designer for a long time, or maybe it's the flip side of this. But I think that it's all like kind of in the spirit of what we're talking about here, which is like, how do you kind of align your day-to-day life with how you're naturally wired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's aligned with your values as well, and what you're
Mhm.
looking for, to earn fulfillment in your life. Um, like sometimes we get stuck in our own boxes that we define or paint ourselves in, and then suddenly we can't imagine what life looks like outside of that box. We've almost
Yeah.
created like a caricature, and that caricature becomes the mold for all other states that we're in. Um, so yeah, it's like, especially with you, Rebecca, I just love to to hear about like how we could possibly reframe ourselves or even, rethink what that box looks like. Because sometimes, one of my favorite idioms is like to a worm in horseradish, the world is horseradish, right? And it's
Mm.
like, okay, well, if I'm just in the sea of horseradish all the time, I don't know what's in the greater world beyond me. So how do I get my head out of the
Right.
horseradish and see something else?
Yeah, I mean, not to poo-poo where Brad and I grew up, but growing up in rural Pennsylvania, it's easy to only see horseradish. Is that an okay
That's
observation?
perfect.
Can I
Perfect.
generalize to you, Brad? I don't know. Maybe he had an awesome childhood, but I was just telling someone yesterday, I feel like my entire life I've just become more and more normal. I was like the weirdo in the small Pennsylvania town. And then I went to college for design, and that's like, oh, of course she goes to college for design. She likes to paint her own dresses. And then moving to San Francisco, of course she moved to San Francisco. She's a wacko. And like just like each step of my life, I just feel like in some ways I become more normal because I'm around more weirdos. So, like, it doesn't even have to be as big as a career move. It can just be more like who do you socialize with in your off time? Like
Yeah.
do they match you in blandness or in excitementness? Just
Yeah.
making sure that you are I always like to be by far the least interesting person in the room. I try to make sure I'm in rooms with much more interesting people than myself, because then there's only room to grow and room to learn. So it's almost like, how are you challenging yourself? It doesn't even have to be as scary as like your profession. It can just even
Yeah.
be, I mean, testament to my mom who still lives in rural suburban Pittsburgh. She is like the queen of meetup.com. After my dad passed, she met so many friends. She went out, she has a dancing group. I just recently found out that dancing group is also a singles group, but she'd always be like, "We're going
No way.
dancing." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, if
That's
my
rad.
78-year-old mother can go out there and make new friends and find new cultures, like I think we can all say like, what can we do? Just even like a baby step towards a difference that we want to make in our lives."
I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, because well, first of all, I want to hear more about your podcast with your mom, because that's
Oh yeah,
that's that's a
she's got her
fascinating
own
thing for me.
platform.
Yeah, but I've noticed a similar thing with my own mom in her retirement. She became the most social person that I'm not like popularity wise, but she has really focused friends and she has routines with them. And she
Hmm.
expanded her circle to like to have people that she really admires, that she is like sparked by,
Hmm.
and that she maintains those, and it opens herself up to social situations like dinners out or like dinner
Hmm.
parties, wine parties, whatever. And I was like, Mom, that's so, how do you meet these people? Well, I just put myself out there. And I said, gosh, that sounds so hard, but like you said, if my 73-year-old mom can do this, so what do? I went ahead and went on Craigslist. I was like, hey, I want to start a band. I got a band
Hmm.
now. That's pretty rad.
Awesome. Make
Like
it Brad Frost proud.
I know, right? Like seriously, that was a couple of years ago, but it's like that's the kind of thing that feels fearful at first, and it's like I know this is scary, but it's only because I know I'm putting myself out there as opposed to conforming to something else that I know is already accepted.
Right.
Like it gave
Yeah.
me the permission to go explore that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's an interesting dynamic in all of this because I think like everything you're both saying makes a ton of sense. I think that what I'm sort of seeing as I look at my DMs and look at where I feel like a lot of people are, I feel like there is this real uh tabling of oneself in order to get a freaking job or to like keep up to date. So I would love to like kind of get your thoughts on that because it's like, yeah, I'm sure everybody would be happily dancing up Maslow's
Mhm.
pyramid towards self-actualization and get to a place where we're all just kind of living our best authentic lives. And they're like, I do not care what this job is. I
Right.
need a job. Like I need, to make ends meet. And
Yeah.
I think that like there's a real interesting dynamic there because I think that like a lot of people take or assume that those things are diametrically opposed or in opposition to each other, when in fact I think that this has been like a lot of like the with a lot of like the mentorship and sort of like community stuff that like we've been doing has been to try to actually be like, no, these things actually are in service of of one another.
Yeah.
So would be
Yeah, and
curious
also
to get
like
your
we're
take on that.
designers. There's always something to be designed, right? And I understand like if someone is saying like I just need a job now, they're in survival mode.
Yep.
And I would almost caution that person, maybe the reason you're not getting a job is because your desperateness is smelly, right? Of just like how do you make sure that you're not coming across as that desperate of a person in those interviews. So almost like brass tacks. I understand. I've been there.
Yep.
Like I contracted for many years before I had my first child, so I knew that like I had to double work before I went into labor to pay for my own maternity. So like things like that, I've been in places where you just know like I got to get a job and it has to pay really well or it has to just pay,
Yeah.
whatever kind of the situation is. And there's just different seasons, right? There's going to be hopefully the season of your career where you really get to shine. But if you're starting from a place of desperateness, it's just almost more like let's tamp down that desperateness, get you solid on the foundation of Maslow's pyramid, and then make
Yeah.
sure like okay, so you work at the definition of a boring design job, let's say, like what can you do in your free time of like you love animals or something like that, do some design work for the local pet shelter, they won't turn you down, like they'll be thrilled. So like are there things you can still supplement that help you to that next position of like yeah, like you're probably going to be in that job that you got to like maintain yourself for 2 or 3 years. What are things you can play with in your other free time to make sure that your next job is more actualizing, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. And
yeah,
not only like, oh, you got to be like, burning the candle at both ends and working all hours of the day. I think
no,
even just being like, I like animals, and that's actually like a part of who I am. Like that's like I think a lot of like what uh, we've talked a little bit about this on the show, but like in a lot of the work that we're doing in our realm, it's like really leaning into the fact that you're a musician, that you're whatever, like that those are actually like selling points, right? If everybody
Yeah.
is like showing up with the same generic ass resume with the same
mhm,
bulleted lists, and it's like, ah, yes, this is the hit. I think our very first episode, Rebecca, like it was basically as like SEO optimization, but for resumes in order to like
Yeah.
get through like AI,
yeah,
Big
this like
algorithm.
AI
Yeah.
force field. And it's just
mhm,
like, man, screw that. Like that feels like so dehumanizing. So it's like it really is these other things, your hobbies and your interests and all of that stuff that I feel like in this moment of time,
mhm,
there's the like when we are putting ourselves up against this, like it's me versus the AI bots and
mhm,
like who's
yeah,
gonna win this. It's like you gotta paint a much fuller picture of yourself
yeah,
that I'm the designer that likes animals and I do,
mhm,
knitting and and I go here and here's my kids and like I think that it's that's needed. I think that
yeah,
that's what people are craving. I think that that's what like the world needs is people to show up more as their full selves. And so does that mean, you know, you need to like leave your job in the first place or like I don't know. It's just like giving yourself that permission if
mhm,
like that's what you needed to just like yeah, just like own up to more of your whole self and show up as your full self and don't be sheepish about that. It's a part of who you are.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they
And
turn you down because you like knitting, then you couldn't have knit on your lunch break at a place like that anyways.
Yeah.
Or,
totally.
more severe, if they turn you down, they would never tell you this, but if they turn you down because you're a parent, then that's probably not a job that's going to actually equal a balanced life where you could be a parent and also have the job.
Yeah.
So like there's
Yeah.
there's always factors that are kind of playing into your benefit, hopefully your ultimate
Totally.
benefit.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I,
it's so hard because there really seems to be like this there's perhaps a real scarcity it's always kind of like difficult to know. It's like
Mhm.
there's almost certainly a real scarcity going on right
Yeah,
now. I
because our
think that we're
industry had
in
a real
transition.
boom.
Yep.
Like there was a severe boom,
Yep.
and now it's almost like the tides are receding. Like what
Yep.
do we do in that case, right?
Yep.
And I want to stay optimistic that there's still opportunities for people who are creative thinkers who can lead people through
Oh,
problem solving. Like even if Figma with the, touch of a button can replace all our UI skills, it can't replace the fact that we guide people through the process. It's not going to mediate when five people has five different ideas of how we should go forward. But, if you've been trained as a designer, the design process can help people through that. And there's even, like I mean, this is what I'm into. This is my go-to is like, what are the activities I can do to allow everyone to express their voice, but still come to a sense of conclusion at the end of
Yeah.
this workshop that we have together.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's like and that I think that way of thinking as a designer is really important to cultivate, because I think that and I don't know, maybe I'm skewed, but I do really feel that a lot of people have relegated themselves to the the production machines, and that
Mhm.
whenever we sort of pick at things about like, oh, why is that this like this, and like what
Mhm.
is the thought process behind all of this, or like how are we sort of bringing a bunch of different diverse perspectives together to create
Mhm.
alignment, make some calls, and move forward. A
Yeah.
lot of I don't know, and I'm not trying to speak ill on designers, but a lot of I feel like for a long time there's been this kind of, I don't know, I'm just kind of I'm the person that's like sweating these design details,
Yeah.
and
Let
so
me go to
that,
my pixel happy place or my
yeah,
vector happy place. And I
yeah,
think it's
I like that.
Yeah, I think we are being
Cool.
pushed to do more than that, right? We're given a seat at the table in the way that like, in tech organizations at least, that like a product designer has a seat at the table like a PM does, like an engineer does. But then once we're at that seat, hopefully as a researcher does. But when we're in that seat, like what do we bring to the table that's more than just like, here's a pretty design. Do you like it or do you not like it? I made it. Do you like it now? Like
yeah,
it has to be more, it has to be, you have to bring more to the conversation than that. And I think our
yeah,
field gives us so much to bring. Like
yeah,
literally there's books called Designing Your Life because what we do for a profession can be used to structure your entire life, you
yes,
know?
yeah,
So like what can you do in those rooms once you're in those rooms or even in an interview trying to get in those rooms to show that like your like the power of your brain and problem solving is like
Yes.
something that they need at their table every time they're discussing.
Yeah, I like what you're saying here too, because it's like one decision at a time, right? This isn't like necessarily big transformational stuff, but being in the present and knowing what your context is and saying, I know where I might want to go in the future, but I have to take
Mhm.
steps in order to get there. So sometimes I have to make the next best decision based on where I am right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay to do. It may not be the full sweeping change that you're looking for, but 1 degree changes or one
Mhm.
degree decisions can change the
Yeah.
course of your career path or your life or whatever context you want to put it into.
You make enough of
So
those and someone calls you strategic.
yeah, totally. You have vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's really cool. I
um
dig that.
D- let's we got a submission
Mm.
yesterday from Max, and I feel like this is related to what we've been talking about. So let's maybe throw it out here, because we could pick at it, because I think that of there's a lot wrapped up in here, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. So I've been a product designer for about 10 years, and I'd like to transition to a design engineering role. I have a strong
Yeah.
background in information architecture and systems thinking, and I've been brushing up on my front end and plan to deep dive on design systems, accessibility, and more advanced CSS features. Any recommendations for making this transition, whether it be specific technologies to focus on or how to position myself? Is this even a worthwhile move, or am I just setting myself up to go from senior designer to junior dev?
Mm.
So maybe we can, I feel like we should like start basement level, soul level stuff, and then maybe we can like work our way up the chain and eventually kind of
Sure.
talk about like, technologies and sort of stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, what's your read on that, Rebecca?
Yeah, well, good on you, Max, because first off, you're already making a list of all the things that you've done and all the things you want to do. And I think it's almost more about the environment you're in, right? So does that environment let you shine in that new way, right? Is it a place that is very like structured and you can never kind of leave your design shape box? Or is it like you can make inroads with the engineers and be like, hey, dude, you know what? Can I actually code that part? Or like, I have three ideas and just code up some samples of them in a way that engineers are talking about how, like, oh man, when I used Max's design, I had to use like way less code because he like basically did it for me, right? So like, what are those inroads that your environment gives you? We actually have on our team and my team at work, we have a designer who transitioned to that road, design technologist. But basically, it was someone who was trained as an architect too. So like he's a self-starter. But it's someone who just basically started to take on that role, started to be the person on the design team. Our team has gone very technical. We've like doubled down on AI infrastructure over at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative for Education, which is now called Learning Commons as of yesterday. So
Oh,
I have to
wow.
give you a new bio because I have a new company name as of yesterday.
Nice.
But he basically, this designer colleague of mine, slowly but surely became the person that every designer went to for all their technical answers for things, right? So, how do you become that go-to person? How do you help your colleagues make inroads to also show like this is the person who is the bridge? Because there needs to be a bridge always
Yes.
between
Oh
teams, whether
gosh,
it's
yeah.
like we all have that engineer who's especially design savvy and that designer who's especially engineering savvy. So like what are the inroads you can make in your own profession at your own job? And the other thing is if you don't see those opportunities, if it's very much like go designer, go back with designers, don't go over there, then
Yeah.
maybe it's not the right environment for you. But you already are building skills that like going to a new place of work and offering that can be an inroad of like, do you want to build a more technical design team that understands the future of design will involve a lot more technicals than now? Um, I think that could be two paths forward for you, Max.
Gosh, you just like made me flash back like 13 years or so when
All right.
I decided to
Love
go
a good
independent,
flashback.
Yeah, totally. Because like because I didn't love what I was doing at work as, in-house, and I had
Hmm.
a newborn child at that time and was thinking, gosh, I'm spending 16 hours a day away from my family. This is, really crummy. I feel misaligned and I was burning out, because of that misalignment. And and yeah, this whole I didn't realize it at the time, but that concept of building bridges or inroads to another idea to incrementally get you out of there, or like plant
Hmm.
seeds that might like you can harvest later. And so being able to like lean out of that job and say, hey, I know you really want me here for this. You don't really need me here full time to do that. Can you contract me for that? Meanwhile, I have this other partner in the background who has work for me that wants me to do other things. That's my bridge. So I'm going from here to here. How can I evolve this and build it into a bigger foundation that I can rest on? And
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, that was such a scary time when I was thinking about, transitioning and pivoting to something new that's, where I'm more responsible for my own well-being
Hmm.
than the being in an in-house place. So like, is there a fear that comes with that sort of decision too?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Let's talk about Max. It's okay to be afraid. And it's also okay if you need to go back to being a designer. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's another thing with like these kind of up and coming like design titles or technology titles is like be aware that you don't want to pigeonhole yourself so much that if in 5 years they're like, oh, down with design engineers, that like you're not like, that's all I do, so that you can't. I mean, it's almost like you're flexing your skill set, but also don't leave behind what you had. And also know that you might have to someday go back to that to pay the bills, but that's okay because it's not a skill set you've lost. It's just more that you're not leaning into as you try
This
to make
is
inroads elsewhere.
That's it. That's it
Yeah.
right there.
Mm.
And so he says it, and I'm just gonna like kind of repeat it just because I
Yeah.
think it's a really I'm a very like visual thinker. So he says, is this even a worthwhile move, or am I just setting myself up to go from senior designer to junior
Right.
dev? Like I'm going
Yeah.
from big to small. And I
Right.
think that like what I'm hearing you both say is that it's just like, nah, dude, like you're getting bigger. Like you don't,
Yes.
because
Yep.
you're just adding more stuff to your toolkit. And, I'm married to somebody who has done a lot of different career paths in life. And she very much, I think, struggles with that. I go from like this one thing and I like, I'm running this jewelry business, but then like life happens and now all of a sudden I'm like doing this and like kind of always feeling like oh, I'm doing these like lateral moves and then I'm like kind of back at square one. And it's like
Right.
another way to think about it is that the rings of the tree and you are just kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
growing and like with each passing
Exactly.
year you're like adding new stuff, new skills, new context, new perspective, new experience onto your pile. And I think
Yeah.
that going all the way back to Rebecca, what you were sort of saying right out of the gate was
Mhm.
like there's a way to do this from within your role right this second. You
Yeah.
just
And yes.
redefine what your job is. You say like, hey, I also do this now. And there's a
Mhm.
good way to be able to sort of like talk to the other people on your team to say like, hey, I'm really passionate about this stuff. I'd love to learn from you more seasoned, engineers or whatever. But I just kind of want to get closer to your world because like this stuff's really helpful. How could I help you? Are there things that I can maybe take on in like the
Yes.
code world that frees you up to do more of the stuff that you want to be doing? So again, like there's this it's this rejection of the boxes, and I think that this industry has calcified in these really rigid and awful boxes that it's like, here's designers, they do this, they're living in this
Yeah.
tool. Here's developers that are doing this stuff, and it's over here. And it's an utter and complete tragedy. And I feel like we've talked about it at length,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
won't retread those steps. But it's just like, again, there are no rules. All of these are constructs. If you are digging
Right.
something and you want to move closer to something, get closer to that thing and talk about that with your team, and you'll be very, very surprised to see how easy it is to just kind of like re-architect your things. Now, I think that you get into the transition and like needing to start thinking about, well, maybe I do need to go elsewhere. If it's like, hey, like this is where my head and my heart is at, and they're just like, no, we need you again, sit at
Right.
your desk with your three-piece suit and sit on your hands, right? Back to like the kids is
And
like, it's
try
like
to
some of that
design
kids
with your hands under your butt.
right, exactly. So it's like
I mean,
in those moments, then it's like,
yeah.
okay, yeah, maybe we need to start thinking about going somewhere where you can actually start exercising these things.
Yeah, and just to like call out, I think the theme of what we're saying is like when you're doing these new activities, live out loud, right? Like live out for your coworkers to grow and improve from it. Because I think that's another big thing of just like don't keep this like, oh, I've been working on this for 8 months now and now I know all these things. Ta-da! Like, I mean, even thinking back to my coworker who just transitioned to design technologist, he like comes to design crits and he's like, I'm using Lucidchart in X, Y, and Z ways, and all the rest of us designers are like, Lucidchart? Why would you do Lucidchart? Why wouldn't you just do FigJam? Like, why are you doing that? And so we literally, our next design crit, we have an engineer coming in to talk to us about why designers would use Lucidchart, right?
Yeah.
So like it's almost like he took one thing he was learning and playing with, brought it back to us, and then everyone wants to learn. Like, what do we need to know? So like what are the opportunities that you're growing that you can grow out loud and
Yeah.
you can say this is the thing I care about. And then the other thing is it's like yes, there are situations where you might have to go back to junior, but like the job ladders between design and engineering are actually not usually that different. So you should be able to kind of, I'd hope, jump ladders and not have to go like chutes and ladders back to ground zero. Yes, you might have to if you're like trying to become a veterinarian, you might become a junior tech if you decide to leave
Absolutely.
design and go do that. But like these are pretty analogous fields in the whole span of things.
Yeah, and Brad, I think you were very explicit in like naming what the antidote to that stagnation is. Which is you just ask, how can I help?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
like
right.
that's the curiosity. That's where the growth comes. That's where the expansion comes. When you just
Yep.
open up the invitation with a non yes no question, to open ended of how can I help, and then
Yeah.
that opens up opportunities right there because everyone needs help in some way.
Yeah.
And then this like sparks the collaboration.
I
It's
think
really
I
cool.
think I think that that's exactly it. And that's like it's a great reframing because a lot of people, I think that the misstep or the wrong way to go about it is, hey team, can I make this CSS here? And what that does is that sets up a yes or no answer for something that's like new and unknown, and it gives people the opportunity to say no, and they will always say no
Absolutely.
because everybody's busy and we're trying to get things done and there's not a lot of room for that kind of stuff, right? But it's the same thing like when anything gets brought up as like a can I do this, can I make this website responsive, can I make this thing accessible, the answer all of a sudden is like, well, I don't know. We need to like prioritize like these different things. So it's like my my long standing piece of advice is like, don't ask those questions. You just kind of do it.
Ask for
But if
forgiveness,
there
not
are
permission.
but if there are things that are like, yeah, like I want to kind of be digging into this area to be able to sort of like reach out to the people that would be impacted by it, but also helped by it, kind of showing up in service of them helps create these win-win situations where it's like, oh, you knew you would welcome this kind of help. Well, as it happens, that's kind of like where I want to be moving into. So I'm happy to sort of step into that and within your role. Like I think that that's like the other like big theme of what we're talking about here. From where you're at, there's so much you can do. I think a lot of people do when we get sort of flustered or when we get sort of when we feel like we're stuck or we're languishing, a lot of times we're just like, man, we just need to like cut the cord. We need like a total reset button and this is going to fix all my problems. It's like, no, dude, like there's so much we can do from just where we're sitting, and so much of it just has to do about like your attitude and just like kind of tweaking a couple knobs that could really sort of just bust open the dam and then you're rocking and rolling again.
Mhm.
That can happen or that could be fostered at the management level too, right? Instead of saying, hey, I have this team where these people fit these boxes, I want you to actually explore and look at things, and if you see an idea, go ahead and explore it, poke at it, share it if it's worth it, and then let's all learn from it. I mean, I remember when I managed a support team, there's so much that I knew I didn't know about certain things. It's not like I'm a support master or whatever, but I have all these support specialists that are really great thinkers and are really great hackers who just want to be scrappy and come up with solutions for customers. Well, go ahead. If a customer has a use case and a solution, don't go bug the engineers about it. You know the product, hack it
Yeah.
around, share that solution. Don't ask permission. I'd love to know the answer to that. Now we all understand the product a little better and the customer benefits at the end of the day. And we all grow from that experience, right?
Mhm. Well, before we leave Max, can you give him some, since you are both more technical than me, can you give him some hot ticket? What is the hot software on the street?
What's
Besides Lucidchart, I give you one, Lucidchart. Hello.
there we go.
Cursor. People are doing the cursor all the
The
time.
cursor.
The
Yeah, well,
cursor. Get on the cursor if you're not already.
there we go.
Did you list cursor?
So it's like
Yeah, list it.
this person brushing up on front end skills, plan on deep diving into design systems, accessibility, and more advanced CSS features. Jeff, what do you got?
No, there's so many ways to go about that. A lot of it is like it's not like a formulaic answer. I mean, just the other day, Adam Argyle put out a post of like, "Hey, these are 25 new exciting things about CSS. You you're interested? These are brand new. A lot of people are just poking at these. You can poke at them too. Check this out." And it's like, well, that's all the inspiration I need. You just give me a well of things, and I'll just spend all day poking if you have that kind of time to do that, or curiosity. So yeah, it doesn't have to be, you know, a specific reference or a specific workshop or a specific school or a degree or whatever else. Sometimes you just need the inspiration or the like pool that you need, or the new horseradish that you jump into, right?
Yeah.
Keep it
Yeah.
spicy.
Keep it
Yeah.
spicy.
I definitely feel like there's some really good meat and potatoes stuff that the horseradish goes on top. I don't know. We're really rolling
Oh
with
no,
this
keep it
today,
going.
huh?
The
I love a
horseradish
good
We're
is a hit.
all in on horseradish.
And a one
But
that's like a food metaphor. Oh my gosh, sign me up.
yeah,
Even if
yeah.
it's not vegetarian, I'll still go with it.
We can transition towards oh, what's the green stuff? Wasabi, you know, you go
Oh yeah.
horseradish to
Okay.
wasabi. There we go.
But yeah, I think that a lot of times whenever people come to me frantically asking for what framework should I learn, what tools should I learn, et cetera, I kind of always go back to basics, and I think that that's one of the things that at the end of the day, things come over the wire as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and everything else is sitting on top of that. And I think that a lot of the answers for things like, you know, accessibility and whatever, those are those all live there. So really, I think kind of focusing on those fundamentals is going to transcend any sort of whatever the hot new flavor of the month kind of thing is. So I think just getting a handle on those foundations is really, really helpful. And with all due respect to Adam, and I love Adam, it's like these people are like living on like the
Oh
edge
yeah,
of like they're like doing victory laps. Like they know
totally.
CSS so well that they're just like, yeah, like they're all helping invent the future. And I think that there is like a lot of really cool design material to like play with there. But I also think
Yeah.
that there's just like this, here's some like pretty just like solid stuff that if you feel like you're able to get to a point of competency where it's like, I'm able to kind of look at any UI pattern that I'm staring at in Figma and I'm able to sort of like code that up. Boy, that's a really good place to be. And you don't need a lot of razzle dazzle there. You just kind of need to know some pretty core concepts that will kind of help you
Yeah.
along the way.
Sometimes
Mhm.
just asking yourself a question, how do I do this? And I mean, if you do start with something like Adam's list of like cutting edge things, that if your natural curiosity will lead you down to the basics in some way,
Yep.
because you've got to
Mhm.
understand the context of how you get there. So if you're wondering like, well, I don't quite understand this concept, what do I need to understand that? You kind of go back and your field expands, you know, your whole perspective expands on that stuff. That's why, yeah, I totally agree with you, Brad. Like at the end of the day, you do start, you know, not just a lateral move where it's like you just assume you already have that skill set that you can move up from. You kind of do a dip, you know, you kind of, you know, bounce down, you know, from like a thing, and then you bubble back up. And that's just an interesting way of reframing your perspective on it, because you're not going backwards really, you're just expanding. You know, that concentric ring
Yeah.
is just getting bigger and bigger.
Yep. I really love it. So for one, you just shared a link in the chat, the basics.
I believe in this.
Oh my God. Yeah. Jeff's got a course with your name on it, Max.
That's my name.
That's amazing. But I think that is really it. And there's, I have somewhere back here, and I just had the good pleasure of writing the foreword to Learning Web Design
Oh,
by our
cool.
friend Jen Robbins, and she's amazing. And the book is like super duper thick. It's like phone book thick, but at the same time, it's like giving you a pretty comprehensive tour of like, here's what you can do in this medium. Yeah, there it is.
I got the book, of course.
And so yeah, so like I think that like kind of having those foundations in place, and then you couple that with where your designer mind is already, you're already practicing this stuff. I think that like you're developing fluency in an adjacent realm, and again, there's a lot of opportunities to just kind of just start exercising that stuff that, yeah, like rather than me doing literally spending my time doing 3 versions of the same comp on 3 different viewports. How about I'm just going to do like a quick sketch of the vibe in Figma and then bring it home in the browser in like a CodePen or something like that, right? And that gets you like the responsive behavior kind of for free, right? So I think that that's like one of the like the other things is like just being creative with like how you're using your time. And so much of we've talked about it on this show, but so much of like my platform is about like being respectful of yourself and to others about like how you're spending your time. And so for my entire career, it's just like, oh yeah, the client came back with some feedback. We need to update. We need to bump this font size by 2 pixels in a pre-Figma, pre-design token era that involved a designer going back through literally 80 Photoshop comps to
Oof.
bump up every single text layer by 2 pixels. As like that's
Reprinting
like if
all the
that's not
pages.
like the most like disrespectful use of a human being's time on earth, then like I don't know what is. So it's like as you look at how you're spending your time as a product designer, it's like what are those areas that maybe you could be like more respectful of your time and kind of shave off some time, find some efficiency by sort of like starting to infuse some of that dev stuff into your repertoire.
Mhm.
Same with like the
Right.
lucid, yeah, like the lucid charts, is that right? It's like there's like a reason why we're like kind of reaching for these things, and it's just like
Yeah.
find yourself questioning. It's like, am I doing the right thing? Are these the right tools for the job? Am I just kind of going through the motions? Are there opportunities to be more efficient, more respectful, more collaborative, kind of get things further down the line sooner? There's those are all great questions, and again, doesn't involve necessarily blowing up your career.
No,
Right.
in fact, a pivot like that is actually dependent on you respecting your experience and your background and your context in a sense. Because okay, I'll just abstract this in the most like dad way ever, right? We just rewatched Ratatouille over the
Nice.
weekend. Love
Heck
that,
yeah.
right? So Remy the mouse, he's this aspiring chef, a rat, aspiring to be a chef in France, and he's trying to help his brother like respect or like understand the possibilities of what happens when you don't just eat food but you taste food, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to take this gorgonzola. It's great by itself. Take a bite. Nope, don't just swallow it. Taste it. Okay, the rosemary. Eat that. Eat them together, and then you get this like big, like explosion of like, oh, I didn't realize that this combination was even possible, and it created a whole new thing. So being able to like take your design experience, like that's going to only benefit you because you have a good context that will solve problems when you combine them with other novel solutions.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
Sorry for the ratatouille.
No, I love it. I love it.
Perfect wrap.
But yeah, it's combinations, right? Like we Walt Whitman quote. It's like I am large. I contain multitudes, and I think that that's like such like a theme of our conversation is that it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like again, it's these things don't happen in isolation. We kind of carry with us our experience and all of that stuff into whatever we're doing next, and that there is a way to frame it as nothing but outward expansion and growth versus this, oh, I'm doing a lateral thing, or I'm going back to start, or we got a 7.5-year-old, so shoots and ladders, right? Go down the big chute, and all of a sudden you got to climb back up again. It's like that's not how this works.
Speaking of containing multitudes, Rebecca, I think you contain a whole bunch of multitudes from what Brad showed me. Just he was able to like shoot out like a dozen links of things that like you do, and I was like, oh my
You shall
gosh, I
know me by
cannot
my
wait.
link farms.
You shall know me by my links. Yes.
Put that on a tombstone. That's,
Oh, please no.
I want that.
Let me be
I
known for
want
more
that.
than my links.
Know me by my links. That is definitely going to be like a bio line right
Yeah.
there.
I will
But
say I just moved to Berkeley and I've been making new mom friends and I've been like it's funny because my husband Brian, who also contains multitudes, will like he'll like bring it up to like we see this like woman at the playground be like, oh yeah, like Rebecca recorded. She was like when she was pregnant with her first baby, she wanted to break the world record for the most pregnant people dancing together. So we filmed a music video, and the woman's like, what? And then she's like, you gotta send me that link. And so I did, and then it leads to other links, and it's almost like, have I overwhelmed this new mom friend? I'm just trying to make a
Yeah.
basic mom friend here. Like I don't want to like drive her out of the water with just like, and then she started sending me like videos of herself doing karaoke, and I was like, okay, I mean, it's all right, it's cool, it's cool.
That's actually a great point because you have so many layers to what you do. Your husband has a lot of layers to what he does. Like, is there any shame or any risk in saying I'm just going to poke at this rabbit hole even if it goes nowhere? Like,
Oh my gosh, no shame in
is that
that.
a waste of time? Yeah, exactly. That
I
that
mean,
like
it
feels
can
like
become an albatross. Like I have a
yeah.
couple albatrosses that still hang amongst from my neck of things I've creative projects I've started and haven't finished. But yeah, no, I think that's really the biggest danger. That and also the loss of all of your money. Because my husband continually reminds me
Absolutely.
if we didn't spend money on he was like, if we put the same amount of money and effort into like a business that makes money as opposed to our music, we would be so much better off right now. We are putting all our
Boy,
money and free
But
time into music.
relative to what, right? What does
That's
better
true.
mean
Relative
in
to
that
what?
sense? Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
we don't
Oh
really want to
Gosh.
have like a piping company or whatever, boring business. AstroTurf. If we put all our money into AstroTurf, would we be better off now? I don't know.
I'm in the sod business. That's
I'm
what
in
you
the
could be.
sub business.
But
We actually have a really nice lawn in our new house. People, neighbors, strangers comment on it, and Brian
oh,
has to mow
amazing.
it every week. But it's very small because it's Berkeley.
Um, back to the new mom friends, because
Hmm.
I think that this is a really interesting thing that also I think really relates to think how people show up at work. And I think a lot of what we were kind of like picking at earlier with just kind of these boxes and stuff like that, just literally by way of having a base in the
Hmm.
background of my video. Whenever we've consulted with different clients and stuff, people will start talking to me about music, right? Just
Hmm.
quite literally, guitar equals this equals the start of this
Yeah.
conversation. And then these people who have worked together for literally years go, "Oh, I didn't know you played in a band." And then like they end up like having this like great conversation, and it's not just like, oh, like a band, it's like, some like weird post-punk band or like, noise
Mhm.
rock or like something that's like, oh, that's not just like, yeah, I'm just like playing in this vanilla cover band kind of thing. It's like there's
Mhm.
some really like interesting stuff. And as this outsider, I'm like, you all have literally worked together for
Yeah.
years,
Did
and
you
like
not do
you're
icebreakers when you
just
started working together?
apparently not. Apparently not. And like I think that there's really something here.
Twist.
I love this virtual realm. I love the ability to just get all of us on a call like we're doing now. But there really is something lost, I think, in that kind of
Oh yeah.
happy hour, just
Oh
kind
yeah.
of company event. You're at the picnic or whatever. Like just something that helps like kind of ground it all in. Yeah, oh yeah, these are actual humans. This isn't just an agenda to accomplish these objectives. But
Hmm.
it's just like it makes me sad that like on one hand I'm really happy to be that person to send the link that kind of starts a conversation about something more interesting than the weather or sod. But at the same time I'm like, boy oh boy, like we need to do a way better job at this. Companies need to be doing a way better job at cultivating this kind of experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I mean,
different
maybe if,
mindset.
to your dear listeners, if they're in a room where they're like, how come I don't know about, more about my coworkers, maybe you're the person to do it. Maybe you're
Yeah,
the person
that's
to
right.
start that icebreaker. It can always be like, it's like, oh my gosh, where's the fun time guy? Why isn't he in here to like start that conversation? Maybe it should be you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Again,
And
that can happen at a management level too, right? It's the difference between placing people in particular spots and cross-pollinating those things and like inviting collaboration and mixing foods together and discovering new tastes.
Mhm.
Chris, you jumped in the chat. I don't know if you feel free to say no thanks, but do you want to like jump on and kind of speak up here? Because I think you're saying
We'll
really
open
good
it up
stuff
to
here.
you. Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, we could read it. So Chris Burdell says, Jeff's earlier point, for what it's worth, I think is an important thing to keep in mind here too, is that you don't necessarily need to drop yourself into fully unfamiliar territory to learn something new and pivot your skill set. You could totally chart new ground by poking at the edges of what you're familiar and comfortable with, and you'll learn how far into the unknown you like to aim towards that provokes the most valuable progress within you. And I think that that's right. And I frankly, we don't have any choice in this. I think like a lot of people like to say, like, if I were to do, I don't know, name something just like wildly different than what I'm doing now.
Electrical
Something
engineering.
electrical engineering, right? If I were to start that journey right after we get off this call, I have no choice but to show up to that new journey with all of my experience to date, with my experience as a developer, with my experience as a designer, with my experience as all of these different things, as a musician who's used to sort of things like signal chain and whatever. So it's like, I know this stuff, like there are transferable skills in literally everything we do, but it's like you really don't have a choice in showing up cold to literally anything. You're showing up with all of your experience and perspective and knowledge to date, and then you point that at whatever is new, because that's how brains work, right? Like we interpret new and novel situations, and we put that through this piece of meat in our head, and we're like, what do I have that is familiar to this thing that I'm looking at in front of me? I've never seen this thing in front of me, but I need to map this to my prior experience, right? And that happens at a neurological level. And then we go, oh, okay. And then once we find those sort of common threads, then you're able to sort of that helps orient you to this new world, and then you're able to sort of move forward.
It's also recognizing that not every every pivot requires like transferable hard skills. Your soft skills that you develop along the way too are equally important, and those, you know, you can't really quantify in a way, but they do give you little personal superpowers that are subjective to you, that you can, you know, that make you the chef, the painter, whatever you are, you know, to like create new flavors, new tones, whatever it is that you're blending together. So,
and that's why those icebreakers, and that's why all that other stuff matters. Like because it isn't just about like your chops as a designer, front end developer, or something like that. And like it is the whole self.
That you never be so boring that only your design skills count.
Yes. And we need better icebreakers, right? Like, what kind of animal would you be, you know, or something, whatever. Like, that's not going to, you know, lead to the core of like who you are. It's an interesting thing, but you know, let's get something different, you know, like what is one rebellious thing you tried doing that you didn't get away with? You know, like that would be interesting, because it can vary all over the board. Actually, I'm kind of curious, Rebecca, what's the most rebellious thing you've ever done? No, just kidding.
Oh, wow. See, I actually was thinking that'd be a really hard icebreaker, because it's like you really got to think on it.
Yeah, you do.
You know, you can tell what animal you'd be, but like, yeah, what rebellious thing? If you ask it, I'll answer it.
Because other people, you know, are going to have different ideas of what rebellious means. Like, is it just coloring your hair? Is that a rebellious act? You know,
well, I got away with it, so that wouldn't count.
Exactly. That wouldn't. I I tried dyeing my hair black one time, and I didn't get away with that. But I wouldn't consider that a rebellious thing. It just looked terrible on me because I'm so pasty. Um, but, but yeah, but it gets to the core of who you are, and it like starts surfacing different bits of information that people can latch onto and relate to, and that's what
Mhm.
establishes new pathways, new opportunities, and like gets you out of that stagnation, out of the damn horseradish.
Out of the horseradish. Yeah, I think that there's a lot there, and it also, I think that this one point I wanted to make, and Rebecca, you said it really well earlier, as like designers as like kind of problem solvers. I think that
Mhm.
this whole idea of like kind of showing up as our whole selves is really important for a field that is inherently human. Like
Yeah.
if we were all working on an assembly line and we're pressing, a bumper for a new car, like
Mhm.
your experience as a knitter or as a musician or as a parent doesn't necessarily map to, oh yeah, like her bumpers are like way better, right? But it's like our
I don't
this
think
is
you can actually say that to a coworker.
your bumpers are a lot better.
No, on an assembly line, you totally can. Please continue.
Yeah. But you get the idea, right? We're not just pressing widgets here, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not just like sort of stamping cogs in a machine shop where it's like we are
Yeah.
ostensibly a machine that is, that your humanity, like, and that sucks to say, and I'm sure I you could probably poke at this and prove me wrong right away. But in our field, that's in intrinsically about making things for human beings, like human beings
Right.
making things for other human beings to use and to improve upon. Like it is necessary, very necessary for us to be more human and showing up
Yeah.
more human. And I think that the unfortunate trajectory of the industry has been one of kind of mechanization and dehumanization.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I've heard it many different ways and heard it laid at the feet of design systems. I've heard it laid at the feet of a lot of things, but I think it really ultimately comes down to, yeah, here are these kind of default modes and these default processes that we're all going through, these
Mhm.
motions that we are going through. And these are all malleable. These are all flexible. These are just agreements. These are all just constructs. And so we can be the one back to Max is like just going, oh, hey, yeah, or your colleague, Rebecca, yeah, I'm gonna do a lucid chart here. And then it's like, huh? And there's, or, hey, I'm gonna like write a little CSS for this thing, huh? Or, hey, how about we just like get together rather than like a formal design review? I'd love to just like get together and like let's just jam on something for the next hour.
Yeah.
And it's like, but we don't have we don't I don't have a model for that in my
Yeah.
head. And just like you could be that person that kind of throws a wrench into the crappy machinery in order to
Yeah.
start establishing those more human processes.
Yeah, because being a designer never stops, right? You're also, I think we have a responsibility to look at how our organizations work and what are the opportunities to design those better too. Where are places that are, is there always a kind of bottleneck when you're getting feedback and everything's thrown back to square one? Is there a bottleneck when it's engineers communicating with designers? Like, where are the places in the system that are also broken as your company works? And there's tons of solutions for how to
Yeah.
redesign that or reboot the way the internal systems work. And I do see that as like a designer's purview, is just to go in and try to make those changes too. And you are sticking your neck out. I'll call that out. Like my new role right now is focused on participatory design, right? So that's kind of scary. What if like
Yeah,
in 2 years that's out of fashion of
yeah,
bringing users into the process of designing is out of
yeah,
fashion, right? That's totally, I've seen it ebb and flow in my own organization, but I
yeah.
feel like it's something that I believe strongly enough in as like we should always be moving towards bringing the users more into the design process. So it's like enough to like be like, okay, yeah, I would like to do that as my full-time job. And it's also that I'm pivoting by doing that, I'm pivoting away from my branding skills, pivoting away from like my love of playing with vectors for several hours at a time. I'm not often in the flow state of like Figma as much, but it's also like there's a season for everything, right? And I got this
Yep.
opportunity to lean into those skills. And then that also opens the doors for like, oh, look, a new team is forming. What if instead of being like, welcome, here's the project charter that we're all working on, what if we have a collaborative workshop to decide it together, where we as the people working on the project are also involved in creating like kind of the thesis statement for what we're going to do with our work together. So
Yeah.
it's open doors in ways that I wouldn't imagine to be almost more like an organizational designer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're getting at a lot of stuff. And I love
Yeah.
how you're framing it. You're basically like, what if we did this?
Yeah.
And
And it was
that's
something I was doing anyways.
yeah.
And it was just putting a title to it, right? Of like, oh, this is something that matters to our organization. We're working a lot with educators and district leaders. Like, let's actually have someone whose full-time job is figuring out how to bring those people into our design process.
That's
And it's
freaking
like,
beautiful.
yeah, so like how do you bring those skills to the forefront where people think of you as the expert, the go-to?
Mhm.
And that's a role they created for me, right? It's not something that they posted out to the world and said, okay, we're looking for a co-building head. Like it was just like Rebecca has these skills. She fit well. Everyone at work calls me RGB if you want to be in with the work crowd. I mean, who doesn't want to call
I
an
I
a
know this because we've worked together before.
you know
So
that is how I am referred to
That absolutely
in the
tickles me. I
workly
love it.
state. I've had a couple people be like, "Is it okay if I call you Rebecca?" And I'm like, "It's fine. Just don't call me Reba." That's the only thing I ask.
But
Now,
I love that it's again and that's your own new tree ring, that's your own
Mhm. Yeah.
expansion, right? And it's like like do you feel like your time spent doing that branding work or being more in the weeds in the sort of Figma world, do you feel like that was misplaced energy as you enter this
No,
desert?
no,
Yeah,
because I
exactly.
launch things that I'm proud of that are out in the world, right?
Yep.
So I think that's also is like, what are you doing that, I mean, no offense to consultants, but a lot of times their work can never make the light of day, right? Because you're under contract for things and it's just almost like, I think that's actually why I pivoted away from being a consultant into internal, just because you can kind of shepherd the work to the point of it launching.
Yeah.
But that, not that it's one is better than the other, but yeah, it's like if those things are out in the world, they're still my calling cards, right? Like
Yeah.
Masterclass kept the logo I designed way longer than I expected them to for a company that got so big so fast, right? Like
Amazing.
YouTube, they still use like the play lozenge that we designed over
so cool.
over 10 years ago now, right? So like and that's now become even if anything synonymous. Like I remember them telling me when we changed the favicon, you can't do that. You can't change the favicon. People will know it's YouTube. And it's like people will know it's YouTube if you do it with confidence. You
Yeah.
say, we are the red play button. Click on us for all your video needs, right? And now that means YouTube, right? So the
Yep.
evolution of that took little baby steps,
Yep.
um, which Brad has made fun of me for that presentation at least twice. So
Now,
I'd love to
now,
give
I
it
won't
again.
do it
If
a
you find
third
other
time.
conferences where I
oh,
can give that
you
again, I
should.
feel like it's even more apt now. Like, and look where it's at now.
But that's just it. It's the march, right? And I can't
Yeah.
believe it's taken us this long to like get to like music parallels, but it's like
Hmm.
it really is. It's like you put out an album,
Hmm.
that's a stepping stone. There's a directional kind of quality to it. And then the artifact that is the output of that
Hmm.
album sort of encodes where you're at in that
Right.
journey.
It's
And
your
then the next
discography.
album kind of comes out. Jeff's like a big Beatles fan. I mean, you know, but yeah, it's like you have that progression of albums where they just get like
Yeah,
more and more like out there.
Yeah.
And it's like so cool to listen to that because those are all just
totally.
kind of like nodes along this journey. And we all have that. And I think that it's the bands that whenever you see them release a new album and it sounds just predictably like their old stuff, but not in a good way. There's like a good way to do that, where it's like they're like going like way deep and exploring it and it still sounds like fresh. But then there's like kind of like some other bands that it's like you're like, oh man, yeah, you're doing this again, and it's
Going
not
back to our
feeling
roots.
fresh.
You're trying
Well,
to play the hits
there's
like
a
a
great way to
TikToker.
like go back to your roots, but then
Yeah,
there's like a
totally.
way that
We've
it's
seen a
just
lot
like,
of that.
this feels like a little like uninspired, maybe. So
Oh, totally. Speaking of the Beatles, Get Back,
Yeah,
right?
no, I think it's
that was the
the
whole idea.
discography. Oh, sorry. You're saying, Jeff?
Oh, I was just making a chip point of like, hey, you know, the Beatles, that was what Get Back was all about, right? You know, revisiting a thing and
Mm,
trying not to be hokey about it.
yeah,
And in the process, they kind of disbanded,
oof.
yeah.
which is harsh. Yeah, I don't know
But
what that
but
Well,
plays into there,
the
but you know.
idea of like the idea of your like kind of creative journey, Rebecca, and like you just kind of sharing like those few, you know, pretty big milestones there in like your career, but like all of those things are part of your trajectory,
mhm,
and you're bringing that to your role as you're kind of bringing, you know, these people, these you know, school systems closer to your
mhm,
world. You're able to kind of like use your kind of past work and your credentials to build trust, and you know, use those in a way to make people feel like you're not full of crap and stuff like that, you know. So all of that stuff
yeah.
like matters, you know what I mean? Like this is, it's useful. It was useful at the time, continues to be useful, because the
Yeah.
things and the artifacts that we create tend to live on after our heads and bodies have moved elsewhere.
Mhm,
But then there's also this like, we can use our whole breadth of experience, like the whole LinkedIn experience timeline, not just like the latest job, right? Like that. And I think
mhm,
that that's like the thing, back to this idea of kind of like being bigger and showing up more as your full self. It's like it matters. Like my first job matters. Like I still refer to stories from my first job all the time,
mhm.
you know, like because there are
Yeah,
some really important lessons there that I encounter all the time to this day.
yeah. And it's distilling what you love about the profession, right? And finding that in every, hopefully more and more so in every job you do.
Yeah,
May I indulge in one story that's not even mine?
Oh,
please.
yes, please.
Okay, this is from an ex-boyfriend about his gym teacher. Sorry, but I promise it's good. I'll keep it quick. But his gym teacher was an expert hunter, and he would go out and he would hunt deer to the extent where he was like a world champion, like, deer hunter. And then he realized that what he loved about it wasn't like it wasn't challenging enough to just have a gun and shoot the deer. Sorry, it's also a vicious story.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so then
We've
he
all seen
became
Bambi.
like,
It's fine.
yeah, whew, yeah, don't get me started. And so then he became an expert knife hunter and he would go out and he would like kill the deer with knives, right? Yeah,
Wow.
vicious. He got to be an expert at that and then he became a bow hunter because it was almost too easy. Or I don't know, I'm confused. Maybe the bow came before the knife. But anyways, he basically kept going up and up this like ladder of complexity for killing deer until he
I love the
realized
way
that
you're
like the
saying that.
thing that he loved was just hunting the deer, not actually killing them. So he would
I
like spend all
love
this time
this.
hunting them and then just like slap them on the bottom.
Slap
And
his
that was
butt.
the goal. Slap
Yeah.
them on the bottom and send them on their
Just
way. And I,
sexually harass a deer
yeah,
and
he
then
just wanted to sexually harass the deer.
Just
And I
check
feel
their
hearing
bumpers.
you talk about like finding the passion from your first job till now. I feel like in some ways, yes, someone might look at from the outside and say like, well, Rebecca used to do these impressive things. What is she doing now? I'm actually at the core. I'm like in the room where people who are going to use a product, and some of them are like the most wretched products ever that like populate schools,
yes,
are like actually in the room where they can make a difference to
yes,
the product that they have to use. And to me, like to be like present in those magic moments and see when they
Yeah.
come up with ideas, then I can help shepherd into the design process to make sure that we make better solutions for them. Like that is my dear sexual harassment.
yeah.
We
Sometimes
take
you
it to
just gotta
great
get,
places.
if there's one thing you take away from this episode, I really hope it's just, you just gotta get to that point where you're just slapping the deer's butt.
Slap that deer's butt.
What I have to ask, was this in Pennsylvania?
Of course.
Yeah, all right. I figured as
Of
much.
course. Yeah.
Because
Do you think
like
I dated anyone from outside of Pennsylvania
you know
before
what? I
I
don't
left
know what
Pennsylvania?
we're
Come on.
talking about our life journeys and stuff like
It's
that,
true.
but like whenever people are like, what was it like where you're from?
Mhm.
And my go-to is that we had the first day of buck season off of
Oh
school,
yeah.
the first day of doe season off of school,
Oh yeah.
and the first day of bow season off of school. So that just like
Duck,
tells
bow,
you
and doe.
everything about where we're from.
Mhm. Yes. Yes and yes.
That's incredible. But that's a very weird and but also charming story about mastery, right? About like the pursuit
Mhm.
of mastery, where it's like there's like this, you know, a lot of times in our careers or like whatever we're trying to like get good at, there's like the technical mastery of things, and that's a lot of like where we tend to fixate, right? Whenever I was learning how to play bass, as I progressed at bass, I would like start listening to like crazier players, right? Like Les
Mm.
Claypool and Victor Wooten, and I'm like, like let me do like all like the things. And then it's like when you kind of like get to that level where you actually feel pretty like competent in that realm, just like the hunter, you're like, well, like what's actually this about? And then
Mhm.
you're able to sort of dial it way back. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's like a lot of people get into that cycle, and we're all kind of on that mastery journey, when whether it's mastering a new JavaScript framework or mastering like the latest like Figma features or like whatever. I think it's just like really kind of having the ability and the self-awareness to kind of take a step back and go, well, okay, these are all just like tools, these are all just kind of methods that I'm using to exercise my craft, and that the craft is a heck of a lot bigger than how many notes you could play, or how many modes you can create with your Figma variables or whatever.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like those are all just tactics, right? But so
Right.
it's about sort of like really kind of remaining grounded in the craft and the pursuit of mastery.
Mhm.
It works in the other direction too, right? You don't have to start in a small spot or like a niche spot. Sometimes if you're feeling stuck, just thinking broad strokes helps too. Like case in point, my daughter comes up to me a couple weeks ago and was like, "Dad, I'm bored." Okay, great. Here we go. We're gonna do the whole I'm bored thing. you know. So I was about to hit the whole cliche. You're not bored. You're just boring. No, I'm just kidding. I was not going
Ah,
to say that. No, no. But instead, I said, okay, well, write down three just big general things that you love. Like if you were she was in my office here, and I asked if you were to identify three things that I really love in general, what would they be? And she's like, well, music. And I'm like, okay, stop right there. Perfect. I was like, music. What is it about music that I like? And she goes, well, you have a lot of records on your wall. You have guitars on your wall. You have you record music. And I'm like, yeah, I've been poking at this music thing for a long time. I'm so fascinated by it that I keep finding new little corners of it. And I don't think I found my actual niche in it yet, but I love distilling it down further and further until I capture something that scratch that itch that I've been looking for, because I know it's music related, but I can still keep drilling down and
yeah,
enjoy what I'm doing, even if those little like modules don't go anywhere.
yes,
It's so much fun. So for her, it was like, I like art. Okay, cool. What do you like about art? Is it the
yes,
drawing of it? Do you like analyzing it? Do you like going to museums? Do you like doing
yeah.
like what is it about this? And so we were able to like drill down with her very specific activities that she could do that day to lean into some of these broader, general areas. And she's like, okay, I'll go do those.
Turns out what she really wanted was to connect with dad. Wah,
Yeah,
wah.
there we
Maybe.
go.
Oh, sometimes she does. She's 13 now, so that's a hit and miss thing.
Take what you could get, man. That's
I totally
amazing.
do. I do. Little wins.
We got a couple more minutes left, so we should probably wrap it up here. But I want Rebecca, I would love to give you the floor for, there's a lot of people out there that have been, you know, wrestling with a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So what closing words of wisdom do you have, or just advice that you enjoy doling out when
I
you get
think
the
I'm going to
chance?
go for pep talk here. I think what really brings it home is that we are in an awesome profession or a set of professions, a family of professions that has flexibility, that has opportunities. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times my husband, who works in a job that has to go to an office, says like, "Oh man, I should have been a designer. You guys can work from anywhere." Like just even starting from that, the fact that you could be doing your work right now on the beach, or the fact that you could be doing work that changes people's lives, and you could be doing work that actually makes people's lives better, and that you have opportunities in your profession to make things way better, even if you're a horrible designer, even if you're absolutely horrible. I've been told I'm a horrible designer, that I shouldn't be a designer. And after digging deep, I realized I was like, even if I am indeed the world's worst designer, and this was after YouTube, after working in consulting, I was told this by a CEO who I work for, who was trying to bring me down. Boy, didn't bring me down. I said to myself that even if he's true, even if I shouldn't be a designer, there's so many things. I love design, and there's so many things out there that even need a mediocre designer to work on them. And so, like, if you have ever felt unsure if you should work in our industry, know that the fact that you're listening to this podcast to be inspired, to be even more rich at what you do, means that you're exactly in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rebecca, what is one rebellious thing that you've done in your life that you haven't gotten away with?
I actually have a great answer. I have a great answer. I have a great answer. It's good. It actually relates to your teenage daughter.
Oh, does it?
Yes, I tried to sneak out to the movies with Phil Klein, and I will just name him. I will name his complete name here.
Bill.
Of course, he lived in suburban Pittsburgh, and that boy was up to no good. And we did secret calls on the phone, and my parents
I love
they like
those.
picked up the phone when we were doing secret calls, and I was so much in trouble that I was
Oh
trying to
yeah.
sneak out with Phil Klein that I was like grounded for the first time ever. This was like bat mitzvah season, so it was like
Yeah. Big
I was
deal.
young. Yeah. And thank God, I will thank God and the universe, because thank God I did not go down to the road of Phil Klein. And then my parents stopped me in my tracks, and they were like, "You will not be the girl who sneaks out to the movie theaters with a boy."
Yeah.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad I didn't get away with it. But I was trying to hard rebel, and
Holy,
they really brought down the iron fist of groundedness.
I can relate to that because I feel like I have similar stories. Like
Yeah,
that was my
I'm
first big
so I
grounding
actually have
too,
thought of that
sneaking
many
out.
times.
Yeah, totally.
What road would I have gone down if I had gotten away with sneaking out with Phil Klein?
And that experience is all contextual and it still plays into the broad strokes of what you're doing, like it
Yeah.
still influences you. I think that's an amazing way to like talk about how all this connects together in the big picture. So cool.
Amazing. Well, Rebecca, thank you so
Always a
much
joy, Brad. Always
for being
all your
here.
things. Always,
Yeah.
always a joy. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
Amazing.
So
And thanks
great.
everybody for listening. We're gonna do this again. If you want to support the show and keep it going, Smashing Membership is right there. We're doing a bunch of other fun projects. I've got a podcast called Wake Up Excited with a forthcoming episode with Rebecca. So you get to hear more of us chatting in a different way. And so some of it the same, but a lot of it
No, it's all new. All new content.
all
Whole new
new,
brain.
all new,
Whole
all
new
new.
brain.
But no, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for helping us out. And be sure to, if you want us to weigh in on your conundrum, or you would welcome some advice and some pep talks from people like Rebecca, then go ahead and write into the show. So we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
folks.
All right, bye.